What I'm about to tell you tonight will make you question everything you thought you knew about teaching. Every teacher talks about the challenges of the job, the difficult students, the endless paperwork, but nobody, and I mean nobody, ever warned me about what could happen when you stay too late at school. After what happened to me on October 14, 2023, I can never look at an empty classroom the same way again. This is the story that ended my teaching career, and honestly, I'm lucky to be alive to tell it. Before we dive into this nightmare, if you enjoy terrifying real-life horror stories like this one, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next on this channel. Now, let me take you back to that horrifying night. My name is Rebecca Morrison, and I was a 28-year-old high school English teacher at Riverside Academy in Portland, Oregon. I had shoulder-length auburn hair, green eyes, and stood about 5 feet 6 inches. People always told me I looked younger than my age, which sometimes made it harder to command respect from the seniors I taught. I had been teaching for 5 years, and I genuinely loved my job. Well, I used to. I was the kind of teacher who stayed late. Really late. While other teachers rushed out the moment the final bell rang at 3:15, I often found myself grading papers or preparing lessons until 8 or 9 p.m. My colleagues thought I was crazy, but I lived alone in a small apartment, had no kids, and honestly, the quiet school building was more peaceful than my lonely home. Plus, I took pride in giving my students detailed feedback on their essays. That dedication, that stupid dedication, almost got me killed. Riverside Academy is a 3-story brick building built in 1987. It's got that typical institutional look, long fluorescent-lit hallways, lockers lining the walls, and classrooms with those small rectangular windows in the doors. My classroom was on the second floor, room 237, tucked away at the end of the east wing. During the day, it's noisy and bustling with over 1,200 students. But at night, it becomes something else entirely. October 14th started like any other Thursday. I taught my usual 5 classes, 3 sections of sophomore English and 2 advanced literature courses for juniors. Nothing remarkable happened during the school day. My last class ended at 2:30, and after the final bell, I settled into my familiar routine of grading papers. The janitorial staff, as always, popped their heads in around 5 p.m. There was Miguel, a friendly 50-something man from Mexico with a salt and pepper mustache, and his younger partner James, an African-American guy in his 30s who always wore basketball jerseys. They knew me well by now. "Working late again, Miss Morrison?" Miguel asked with his usual warm smile. "You know me, Miguel. These essays won't grade themselves," I replied, holding up a stack of papers about The Great Gatsby. James laughed. "You work too hard, teach. You should get yourself a life outside these walls." Little did he know how prophetic those words would be. "We'll be done by 6:30, Miguel said. "You need anything before we lock up the other wings?" "No, I'm good. Thanks, guys." They always locked the other wings of the school but left the east wing accessible since I had a key to the main entrance. The understanding was that I'd lock up when I left. Security wasn't exactly Fort Knox level at Riverside Academy. We had cameras at the main entrances and the parking lot, but the school district had been cutting budgets, and our security system was honestly pretty basic. By 7 p.m., I heard Miguel and James leave through the east entrance, their voices echoing down the empty hallway, followed by the heavy clunk of the door shutting. Then, silence. The kind of silence that feels thick, almost tangible. The only sounds were the humming of the fluorescent lights above me and the occasional creaking of the old building settling. I actually loved this time of day. No distractions, just me and my work. I put on my headphones and started listening to some classical music while grading papers. Chopin's Nocturnes, perfect for concentration. Around 7:45 p.m., I decided to take a quick bathroom break. I pulled off my headphones and stood up, stretching. That's when I noticed something odd. The hallway lights outside my classroom were flickering. Not all of them, just the section directly outside my door. The fluorescent bulbs made that annoying buzzing sound, oscillating between dim and bright. Great, I muttered. Probably need to tell maintenance about that. I walked down the hall toward the bathroom, which was about 30 feet from my classroom. My footsteps echoed loudly on the tiled floor. The flickering lights gave the hallway an unsettling strobe effect. I pushed open the bathroom door and went inside. The bathroom was cold. Noticeably colder than the hallway. I could actually see my breath forming small clouds in the air. That was strange considering it was October in Portland, not exactly freezing, and the building's heat should still be running. I used the bathroom quickly, washed my hands, and caught my reflection in the mirror above the sinks. I looked tired. Dark circles under my eyes. I really did need to stop staying so late. As I was drying my hands with a paper towel, I heard something that made me freeze. Footsteps. Heavy footsteps in the hallway outside. But these weren't the sharp clicking of women's heels or even the squeaking of sneakers. These were deliberate, slow, heavy boots. Moving down the hallway. My heart started pounding. Miguel and James were gone. The school was supposed to be empty except for me. Hello? I called out, trying to sound confident. Is someone there? The footsteps stopped. Silence. I stood there, paper towel still in my hand, listening intently. Nothing. Maybe it was just the building settling. Old buildings make weird noises all the time, right? I forced a laugh at my own paranoia and headed back to my classroom. But as I walked down that flickering hallway, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Really wrong. Back in room 237, I tried to focus on grading again, but I couldn't concentrate. I kept glancing at the small rectangular window in my classroom door, expecting to see what? I didn't know. I pulled my headphones back on, thinking the music would calm my nerves. 20 minutes passed. I was making good progress on the essays when suddenly my classroom door rattled violently. Like someone had grabbed the handle and jerked it hard. I jumped in my seat, my heart exploding in my chest. I ripped off my headphones and stared at the door. The handle wasn't moving anymore. Nothing. Miguel? I called out, knowing it wasn't him. James? Is that you? Silence. I slowly stood up and approached the door. My legs felt weak. Through the small window, I could see the empty hallway, still flickering with those damn lights. Nobody was there. Maybe the door was just settling. Maybe I had imagined it. But my instincts were screaming at me. Something was very wrong. I pulled out my phone to check the time, 8:17 p.m. I decided it was time to leave. I could finish grading these papers at home. I quickly gathered my things, shoving papers into my messenger bag, grabbing my jacket and keys. As I was packing up, I heard it again. Footsteps. This time they were running. Running down the hallway toward my classroom. Boom, 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 boom. The sound was getting louder, closer, faster. Oh God! I screamed. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. I could see a shadow through the small window. A large shadow. Someone was standing right there. Then, nothing. The shadow moved away, and the footsteps resumed, this time walking away, back down the hallway. I was absolutely terrified. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I needed to call 911, but what would I say? Someone was walking in the hallway. They'd think I was crazy. I decided I needed to get out of that school immediately. I grabbed my bag and moved toward the door, pressing my face against the small window to look out. The hallway appeared empty. The flickering lights created dancing shadows, but I didn't see anyone. Taking a deep breath, I slowly opened my door. The hallway was silent except for that damned buzzing from the fluorescent lights. I stepped out, looking both directions. Nobody. I started walking quickly toward the main exit at the end of the east wing. My footsteps echoed loudly, and I tried to move faster without running. Running felt like it would trigger something. Like if I ran, whatever was in this building with me would chase. I was about halfway down the hallway when I heard the most bone-chilling sound I've ever experienced in my life. A voice. A deep, raspy male voice, coming from somewhere behind me. Rebecca. It was whispering my name. My name. I froze. Every hair on my body stood up. How did this person know my name? Rebecca Morrison. The voice was closer now. I slowly turned around, and what I saw made my blood turn to ice. At the far end of the hallway, near my classroom, stood a man. He was tall, maybe 6 feet 2 inches or 6 feet 3 inches, wearing dark clothing and what looked like a maintenance uniform. But his face was wrong. It was pale, almost gray, with sunken eyes that seemed to reflect the flickering lights like an animal's eyes at night. He was staring directly at me with a smile that was all wrong. Too wide. Too knowing. I've been watching you, Rebecca, he said, his voice carrying down the empty hallway. Every night. Watching through the windows. You stay so late. So dedicated. So alone. My body finally kicked into survival mode. I ran. I ran as fast as I've ever run in my life. My bag was bouncing against my hip, my keys clutched in my hand. Behind me, I heard him start running too. His heavy boots pounding against the tile floor. You can't leave, he screamed. Not yet. I rounded the corner at the end of the hallway, my shoes slipping slightly on the polished floor. The main exit was visible now, those glass doors that led to freedom. But as I ran toward them, I realized with horror that something was blocking them. Desks. Someone had stacked desks in front of the exit. No, 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 and no. I screamed. I could hear him getting closer. His footsteps were right behind me. I changed direction and sprinted toward the stairwell, yanking open the heavy door and practically throwing myself down the stairs. I took them 3 at a time, nearly falling, catching myself on the railing. Behind me, the stairwell door burst open and I heard him coming down after me. There's nowhere to run, Rebecca, his voice echoed in the stairwell. I know this building better than you. I made it to the first floor and burst through the door into the main hallway. This was the floor with the main office, the principal's office, the front entrance. But the front entrance would also be locked with the electronic system. My key only worked on the east wing door. Think, Rebecca, think. The library. The library had a window that I knew was always broken, never quite latching properly. If I could get there and climb through. I ran toward the library at the center of the first floor. Behind me, I could hear him exit the stairwell. His footsteps were methodical now, not running. He was walking. Confident. Like he knew he had me trapped. "You should have left when you had the chance," his voice echoed through the dark hallway. "But you stayed. You always stay. That's why I chose you." The library door was locked, but I still had my keys. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped them. They clattered on the floor, the sound impossibly loud. I bent down, grabbed them, and finally managed to unlock the door. I slipped inside and closed it quietly behind me, locking it again. The library was pitch black except for the dim emergency exit signs and the faint moonlight coming through the high windows. I could barely see anything. I stumbled forward, knocking into a book cart that rolled away with a loud screech. From outside the library door, I heard him. He was there, trying the handle. "I know you're in there, Rebecca," he said calmly. "The librarian's window. Good thinking. But I'll be faster." Oh God. He knew about the window. I ran through the library, weaving between the shelves and tables, making my way to the back wall where the window was located. I could hear him starting to break down the door behind me. Crash. Crash. He was kicking it in. I reached the window and tried to open it. It was stuck. I pulled harder, putting all my weight into it. Crash. The library door burst open. I could hear him entering. "Ready or not, here I come," he sang in a terrifying sing-song voice. The window finally gave way with a loud crack as the old latch broke. Fresh air rushed in. I grabbed the windowsill and started pulling myself up. It was higher than I remembered, and I'm not exactly athletic. I heard his footsteps running through the library. He was close. So close. With a final desperate surge of adrenaline, I pulled myself through the window, scraping my arms on the sill, and tumbled onto the grass outside. I fell hard on my shoulder but immediately scrambled to my feet. Behind me, I saw his face appear in the window. Those dead, reflective eyes staring at me. But he didn't climb through. He just stared as I ran across the school grounds toward the parking lot where my car was parked. I made it to my car, got inside, locked the doors, and immediately called 911. My voice was barely comprehensible as I screamed that someone was in the school, that I had been chased, that I needed help now. Police arrived within 7 minutes. They searched the entire building. Every classroom, every closet, every storage room. They found the desks I had mentioned stacked against the exit. They found my classroom exactly as I had described it. They found the broken library window and the kicked-in library door. But they never found him. Not that night. Not ever. However, what they did find made this story so much worse. In the school's basement, in a storage room that was supposed to be locked, they found a makeshift living space. A sleeping bag, food wrappers, empty water bottles, and covering one entire wall, photographs. Hundreds of photographs. Of me. Pictures of me teaching my classes. Pictures of me grading papers. Pictures of me taken through my classroom window from outside the building. Pictures of me getting into my car in the parking lot. Some of these pictures dated back months. He had been watching me for months, living in that school basement, coming up at night when I stayed late. They also found a journal. Inside were detailed writings about me, my schedule, my habits, his plans for the night I would finally be his. The date written at the top of the last entry was October 14th, 2023. That night, he had been planning something terrible for me that night. The police determined that it was probably someone who had worked at the school before, someone who knew the building's layout and had kept a key. They had suspects, including a former janitor who had been fired 2 years earlier for inappropriate behavior, but they never found enough evidence to make an arrest. I quit teaching the next day. I just couldn't go back. Even now, 2 years later, I can't walk past that school without feeling sick. I moved to Seattle, got a job in corporate training instead of teaching. I have a studio apartment on the 4th floor of a building with excellent security. I never work late anymore. I'm always home before dark. But here's what haunts me the most, what keeps me up at night: they never caught him. He's still out there. And sometimes, I swear I can feel it. That sensation of being watched. I'll be at a coffee shop and I'll turn around quickly, thinking I saw something in my peripheral vision. I'll hear footsteps behind me on the street and my heart will start racing. I'll see a shadow move past my apartment window even though I'm 4 stories up. Is it paranoia? Post-traumatic stress? Or is he still watching me, even now? Have I really escaped, or has he just been patient, waiting for the right moment? I honestly don't know. What I do know is that I'll never, ever stay late at work again. And if you're someone who regularly works alone in a building at night, please, I'm begging you, don't. It's not worth it. Because you never know who might be watching. You never know who might be living in the walls, in the basement, in the shadows, just waiting for their moment. If you enjoyed this terrifying story, please subscribe to this channel for more real-life horror experiences. Leave a comment below if you've ever had a creepy experience at work or school. And remember, stay safe out there. Lock your doors. Trust your instincts. And never, ever assume you're alone. Because you might not be.